Okay. Good morning, and thank you for inviting me to talk about the COVID vaccine. Um, I want to, share my experience with, learning more about the COVID vaccine, and I want to, start by, saying that, back in September, when it was announced that within a few months, by the December, we would have a few vaccine available. I was, kind of shocked, and my kids who know that I'm working in a COVID clinic asked me, are you gonna take it? Are you gonna take it? And my immediate reaction was no. I'm a little skeptical about the whole process. I think throughout, the pandemic has been politicized, and I've been worried that that our scientists, our government agencies, the FDA, CDC, were being influenced by political factors, and so I was really skeptical, and I told him, I think I'm going to let other people, try it out. So many of them, others try it out before I'm going to take it. And that's how I felt in September. So today I'm going to talk about how, what I learned about the vaccine since then, and basically why I decided to take it. So, I'm going to talk about the vaccine development. I'm going to talk about the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, how they work, and what we know about the efficacy and the safety, and also about the side effects. So, first we got, all understand, how our immune system works. We have the innate immunity, which is what we're born with. That's what helps us fight off infections right from the get-go, from when we are born. And then we also have the adaptive immunity, and that's the immunity that we acquire through being exposed to viruses or infections, or by taking vaccines like measles, mumps, and rubella, and tetanus shot, etc. And the vaccines work by exposing dead microbes, or parts of dead microbes, to our body. At the beginning of the pandemic, some people, and certainly my children, were saying, "Hey, this is just like the flu. What's the big deal?" Well, we found out that it is a big deal. It's more easily transmittable. The hospitalization rate, as you can see in this slide, is out of 100 people that get the flu, maybe 2 of them will end up in the hospital. But out of 100 people who get COVID-19, between probably 15 to 20 might end up hospitalized. The case fatality, how many people die of the disease, is also much different. Probably 1 in 1,000 people who get the flu will die, whereas with COVID, it's maybe 10 to 30 people out of 1,000 that get it will die. So quite different. So what happens if we don't use the vaccine, or if we did not have a vaccine? Well, we know that most of the population would eventually get infected. 10 to 20% would be hospitalized, and 1 to 3%, or 3 to 9 million people would die. We're already past 350,000 people who have died, and we know that it's going to get worse. The other thing that I'm particularly sensitive about is, and because I'm working in a COVID clinic, is that there are many people who continue to have symptoms. And we don't know how long this is going to go. And this is not only the people who have gotten severe cases of COVID. These are sometimes people who have actually had a mild case. So, you know, the suffering, the number of people who will suffer from this is incredibly large. So yes, you know, we can choose to do nothing and we will achieve herd immunity, but it will come at a cost. So the first part I was worried, you know, like, boy, this vaccine really, you know, was really, you know, it didn't take much time. You know, traditionally, a vaccine development, you know, takes 10 to 15 years. You know, traditionally, that means, you know, when I went to med school, that's what I learned, you know, and that was 30, 40 years ago. So, you know, usually you spend 2 or 3 years playing around with mice in the labs, and then you get your product, your vaccine, and then you start using it on humans to see if it's, you know, if it's safe. Not that it works, but if it's safe. And then if it's safe, then you start doing your phase 2 and phase 3 clinical studies to see if it actually works. And then you continue to monitor for safety. Once all that, once you've concluded that it works and looks safe, then you ask the FDA to review it and to approve it. That can take 1 to 2 years, and then, you know, it takes another 1 to 2 years to actually manufacture it and get it out to the market. So that's a kind of traditional way that vaccines are developed. Now, you know, what we've done here in our case here is it's been developed in less than 12 months, and you know, this is what, you know, really, you know, was, you know, kind of bothered me. Like, boy, are we cutting some corners here? So, you know, when I that's when, you know, some of my, you know, when I started getting educated about it, and you know, some of my colleagues, you know, John Adams and Neha Sandeep, you know, made a presentation about the vaccine, how it's developed, etc. And the thing that we have to remember, and the thing I learned, is that in the last 20, 30 years, we have learned a lot about infections, and especially viruses. And we are able to determine virus genetic makeup very quickly and also replicate it. So in the case of COVID-19, within a few weeks of identifying what was a virus that's causing these infections, this disease, we had it mapped out. We had a whole genetic content mapped out, and that information was immediately disseminated around the world to researchers and to the scientists, to makers of vaccine. So all these people were able to start working on a problem of getting a vaccine. The other thing that happened at the same time is that a lot of money, billions of dollars, were given to these researchers and manufacturers to help them develop this, to help them start their phase 2, phase 3 studies, not serially, not one after another, but they could do it in parallel. And that saved a lot of time. They also could start thinking ahead and getting the factories ready, the labs ready to manufacture millions of doses. So all that was, this crunch all the time, and made it possible to get this vaccine. So, it was not a miracle. A miracle was when the U.S. Olympic team, hockey team in 1980 beat the Russians. That was a miracle. But the development of the vaccine, as I learned on how they did it, was not a miracle. All the elements were there. Okay. So, how does a vaccine work? Well, generally, it targets what's called the spike protein. And think about the spike protein. It's on the surface of the virus. It's a latch or target for the immune system. Think of it like it's a flag. in front of a house, okay? And it's a way of the immune system to identify that virus. Inside the virus is a whole gene. That's the genetic makeup, okay? And if you took that whole genetic makeup and put it into a human cell, then you would get more virus. But what we do in making the vaccine is that we just take the small portion that makes the spike protein gene. That's all that we are taking and making. So it's not that we're making the whole house, we're just making the flag. So there are various types of coronavirus in development, but the two that are out and have been approved by the FDA are what we call messenger RNA vaccines. And that's what you see is in number 3 here. And basically, you take the mRNA stands for messenger RNA, and that codes for the spike protein. That's a little snippet of the virus code, the genetic code, and it only codes for the spike protein. And then you take that and you put an envelope on it, and that's in your vaccine, and then your body starts producing the spike protein. Here's another representation. You see the red, that's a messenger RNA. You have the delivery vehicle, like the Amazon van that brings you stuff. And then gets into it's injected in your arm, it gets into your cells, and then the genetic, that snippet, is taken, it starts making, with the help of your own cells, the spike protein, which will then make an immune response, make antibodies. That snippet of RNA does not go into your nucleus. It's not capable of going into the nucleus. It just goes into what's called the cytoplasm of your cell, all right, where it starts making the spike protein. But it doesn't go into your nucleus. It's not going to mess around with your genetic makeup. Are these new mRNA safe? I had really not heard anything about it. But what I found out is that they've been used since 2008 in human trials, not to make vaccines against viruses, but it's really to make cancer vaccines, which is some cancers are related to viruses. But when so they started using these type of technology back in 2008. It didn't work for cancers, but certainly we learned a lot about its safety, and we knew it was safe, and it was very simple to make. Okay, in comparison, and I'll come back here to the adenovector virus, you see number 2, that's another type of vaccine which is being in development now. The Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine is based on that, where they take the spike protein, but then they insert it into an adenovirus. Okay, adenovirus is a very common virus which can give you a common cold. Then that is injected into your body to make the antibodies. Okay, that's a more complicated and potentially riskier type of vaccine. So the mRNA vaccines, are simple to make. They're safe, and the other thing it does better than the other types of vaccine is that it really generates a very strong immune response. One of the disadvantages, well, they have to be transported in very, very cold refrigerators, and they are much more expensive. So, I was reassured from hearing about how those vaccines were being, the technology behind it. So now I looked at, this was now December, like, hey, the vaccine is out. What do we know from the trials? Did they have enough people? Well, you know, the Pfizer vaccine, they had 43,000 participants. Half of them got the vaccine, half of them did not. And out of the first 170 cases of COVID-19 that they detected, 162 were in the placebo group, the group that did not get the vaccine. So that's an efficacy rate of 95, which is really, you know, incredible, you know, for a vaccine to be so efficient. Okay, so you know, that was really, really encouraging. This is a slide that shows you what happened after just one dose. And you know, both the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, you give 2 doses. But after just even 1 dose, in the blue are the people who got the vaccine, in red are the people who did not. And as you can see, as time goes on, the people who got the vaccine, very few people are getting COVID, whereas the people who did not get the vaccine are getting COVID. The Moderna vaccine, which is also, you know, 2 doses, they had 30,000. So altogether, both these companies had, you know, 75,000 participants. Again, half of them got the vaccine, half of them did not. Out of the first 196 cases of COVID-19, 105 were in placebo group. So that's, you know, again, 94% efficiency, you know, which is, you know, really fantastic. And that's why the FDA approved both the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccine. Side effects. Well, you know, for side effects, you know, this is not your flu vaccine, okay? So, yes, most people will get pain at a site of injection. A lot of people will get fatigue or headaches. It seems that you know, most of the side effects come with the second shot more than the first. And the other thing that we've noticed is that younger people tend to have more symptoms than the older people. And what we mean by young is between the ages of 16 to 55. This slide kind of shows you how it, you know, the different, you know, side effects in comparison to Shingrix, you know, the zoster vaccine and the flu vaccine. And as you can see, you know, local pain is very common. You know, overall, you know, when you get the flu shot, you know, it's not a big deal, but, you know, you can definitely be prepared to have some side effects with the Moderna and Pfizer. All of these side effects, mind you, are, you know, within 24, 48 hours, completely resolves. What do we know about severe allergic reactions? Well, you know, in the first week that the Pfizer vaccine was given in England, you know, there were 2 healthcare providers who got anaphylactic reactions. They both lived, they both had history of allergies. So, you know, it seems there have been more people that have had anaphylaxis reaction, and most of them have some sort of allergies, are known allergies. You know, how does that compare to other vaccines, not COVID vaccines? Well, for non-COVID vaccines, you can get severe reaction, maybe 1 out of 1 million doses, okay? For the Pfizer and Moderna, it looks like so far, by the number of people that we've, you know, vaccinated, that it's probably probably twice that, or 2 to 3 times that. So 2 to 3 severe reaction per million, okay? So altogether, you know, still a pretty low, you know, severe allergic reaction rate. Okay, so you know, I wanted to share with you how I went, how my thinking has evolved about the the vaccine. I started, from a place of being very skeptical, because everything has been so politicized. But, I think that, as I look more into details of how the vaccine was developed, I felt, very comfortable. There was no shortcuts taken. A lot of people have gotten this vaccine in the trials, and now, millions of people around the world, probably 3 to 4 million here in this country have gotten it. And, the early data show that they're both very effective and they're safe. They both will give you some, minor, some local and systemic reaction. They're minor and they resolve within 24 hours. So, what we all have to ask ourselves, it's like, do the benefits of vaccination outweigh the risk? And, I hope that it presents some information that will help you make that determination. I like to think of this that, the COVID pandemic has thrown us into the water, and we're all in the water right now. We're treading water. Many people have drowned, many more people will drown. That's the reality. And the only thing we've had to survive right now is, wearing masks, socially distancing, washing our hands. That's the only thing we've had so far. But now with the vaccine, I think that we have a lifeline. And, each one of us will have to ask, do I grab it or do I keep on treading water? Thank you very much.